Every ancient weapon explained. Part 0, backstory. Before going over each individual ancient weapon, I want to first go over what the ancient weapons are as well as their history. Massive spoiler warning for the recent manga chapters of the Egghead Island arc. The ancient weapons are 3 monstrous weapons that existed in the Void Century. The 3 weapons, Pluton, Poseidon, and Uranus, all bear the name of a Greek god and are capable of destroying the entire world. We're only shown the power of the ancient weapons a single time, however what we are shown is a weapon capable of destroying the entire country of Lelouchia without a trace. Now moving on to the history of the ancient weapons. During the Void Century, all of the islands we know today used to be part of a huge supercontinent. However, at some point, a massive war broke out between Joy Boy and the 20 Kingdom Alliance. In this war, the ancient weapons were heavily used, causing the sea levels to rise 200 meters. While Joy Boy did end up losing this war, before his defeat, he attempted to preserve the ancient weapons for the future, a decision that would perplex Vegapunk as to why Joy Boy would allow such dangerous weapons to be kept. We see this idea of Joy Boy trying to preserve the ancient weapons in Odin's flashback, where after reaching Laugh Tale, Roger tells his crew that they had been too early, referring to how Shirahoshi or Poseidon had not yet been born. Finally, in the present, the world government uses the ancient weapons as the reason to forbid people from reading the poneglyphs. The government will say that anyone trying to read the poneglyphs also has the intention of reviving the ancient weapons, and even if it isn't true, this alone gives the government a good enough reason to erase anyone trying to research the Void Century. Part 1, Pluton. The first ancient weapon we're introduced to is Pluton, a monster of a warship capable of destroying an entire island with a single blast. Not much is known about Pluton's history, except that it was constructed on Water 7 many centuries ago. In fear of Pluton's great power, the ship's creators passed down its blueprints through many generations of shipwrights. The idea being that if the original was ever revived, they could create their own Pluton to stop the first one. These blueprints would eventually fall into the hands of Tom's workers, where before Tom's execution, he would give the blueprints to Iceberg, who many years later would hand them down to Frankie. In the story, Pluton is first mentioned in the Alabasta arc, where Crocodile attempts to find the weapon so that he could use its power to take over the world. However, his plans are foiled after Nico Robin lies to him about Alabasta's poneglyph, saying that it only mentions the history of Alabasta, when in reality, it detailed the exact location of Pluton. Later in the Water 7 arc, Pluton once again becomes a major story point when Spandam tries to obtain its blueprints. But after Frankie learns that Nico Robin had no intention of reviving the ancient weapon, he burns the blueprints, stopping Spandam's plan. Finally, at the end of the Wano arc, we learn from Sukiyaki Kozuki that the original Pluton rests underneath Mount Fuji in the country of Wano. Since Pluton is submerged so deep underwater, the only way to retrieve it would be for the walls of Wano to be torn down. This meant that Odin's message of opening Wano's borders really meant unleashing Pluton onto the world. Part 2, Poseidon. The next ancient weapon we're introduced to is Poseidon, which, unlike Pluton, is a living being, specifically, a mermaid that appears every few centuries with the ability to talk to sea kings. Regarding the history of Poseidon, we know that over 800 years ago, Joy Boy met the original Poseidon, as revealed by King Neptune and Robin's conversation. Joy Boy had made a promise with Poseidon that would ultimately end with the Noah being brought to the surface. However, for whatever reason, Joy Boy failed, causing him to write an apology letter on a poneglyph to her. Aside from this letter, the only other historical document mentioning Poseidon is Shandora's poneglyph, which indicated that Poseidon's location is on Fishman Island. In the story, we learn that the Poseidon of this era is Princess Shirahoshi, who was able to unconsciously summon sea kings since she was 6 years old. This is a power strong enough to sink the entire world. However, as of now, Shirahoshi isn't fully aware of her power as well as how to control it. Queen Otohime does tell us though that one day a guide will appear to help Shirahoshi use her powers on the right path, this guide supposedly being Luffy. Finally, the Sea Kings Shirahoshi can talk to are also aware of her existence, and for centuries have known their purpose in eventually lifting the Noah. The Sea Kings even knew when Shirahoshi would be born, as well as the day when she would meet Luffy, decades before it even happened. Part 3, Uranus. Out of the 3 ancient weapons, Uranus is the one we know the least about. We don't know what it looks like, what it does, or where it is. However, in the very recent chapters of the manga, we are given some clues as to what Uranus may be. With that in mind though, huge spoiler warning for the recent manga chapters of the Egghead Island arc. Starting off, in chapter 1115, Vegapunk tells us that the cause of the recent rise in sea levels was due to the ancient weapons. Since we now know that the world government owns one of the ancient weapons, and since we already know the locations of Pluton and Poseidon, this could mean that the weapon used to sink Lelouchia was Uranus. If we continue with this logic, if this weapon is Uranus and also needed the Mother Flame to be activated, this indicates that Uranus isn't a living being like Poseidon, and most likely a machine or weapon like Pluton. One possible argument against this theory is that the blueprints for Pluton did exist for years before Franky burned them, meaning that there could be more than one Pluton in existence. I highly doubt this though, and moreover, the weapon that destroyed Lelouchia did not destroy it in a single blast, as Crocodile claimed Pluton could do, and needed a shower of attacks to erase the island. This is all speculation though, so let me know in the comments what you guys think Uranus might be.